Hello guys, it's Rafi here, and this is the third video of the series on how we can create a CICD pipeline in Google Cloud using Kubernetes cluster and with Jenkins. Stay with me. So if you already watched two previous videos, you know that we decided to create a separated Kubernetes cluster inside Google Cloud to host all the Devops tools, including our CICD system. And then we create the code, Terraform code, to bring up the cluster. And then we set up Jenkins in a way that it can manage the pods as agents and assign the task, the job to the agent pods. In this video, we are going to cover how we can create full CI/CD pipeline from beginning till the end. Let's quickly go back to Jenkins dashboard and see what we have there. Okay, as you can see, there is a test job here. We created this test job just to check how Jenkins bring up pods as agents, control them, and then terminate them. And we installed the required plugins, if you can remember, and that was Kubernetes plugin. And then for configuration, we can simply go to configure clouds here. And this is all the configuration set for Kubernetes plugin. So let's see what do we have here so far. So we have a pod template. We named it as JNLP. It should be inside Devops tools namespace. We labeled this pod as kube agent. And if you can remember, labeling is the way that we instruct Jenkins to assign the jobs to this kind of agents, to the pods. So we use it a lot. And then as container, we bring up a JNLP container. And then this is the Docker image address for this JNLP and working directory. Okay, everything is set. So far we have one template for the pod, and inside that pod we only have one container. But just think about the process that we should follow, right? What was the process? The process was like, we want a CI/CD pipeline to be triggered when some events happen inside the Git repository. So the first thing we want to do is just simply cloning the Git into the pod and then create a Docker image based on the changes, based on the pulled changes, and then push the created Docker image to the Docker registry. And at the end, we want a deployment up and running based on the created image, which is actually the CD part, right? So let's quickly go back to the dashboard itself, and this time we want to create new job. For the new job, we don't follow the freestyle project. We are going to use pipeline, and the reason is that basically freestyle project is more graphical, let's say like this. You have less flexibility there, but everything is graphical. What we're gonna follow is creating a pipeline project. Inside the pipeline, you have to write code for whatever you want, right? But it provides much more flexibility. And for creating the real CI/CD pipeline, we use pipeline type of the item itself. So I just set it as pipeline, and let's name it as Go application, like this, and then hit OK. Okay, this is the environment that Jenkins provides for us for this specific kind of pipeline. As you can see, there is less configuration compared with the freestyle project. But that's not going to be a problem because we can just simply write everything inside the code. So I will leave everything as it is for now. What I want to focus is a pipeline itself. There is a simple editor available here, and we can just simply start creating our pipeline using Groovy language in Jenkins inside this editor, right? Basically, we have two approaches to have our pipeline as a code. First is creating a Jenkins file and put everything we will develop here inside the Git repository and refer the address of that Git repository to this pipeline. Then when it pulled it, it will find the Jenkins file and go through the code and knows what should it do. But For now, we just want to leverage the editor here itself and create all the configuration, all the codes for executing that pipeline here. There are some samples here which are good to start. So I want to go with a declarative with Kubernetes. As you can see, there is a sample for us here. I just copy all of them and go back to the VS Code and paste it here, because this way I can understand it in a better way. So let's see what do we have here and how is the structure of this declarative Jenkins file. As you can see, all the declarative Jenkins file starts with pipeline, which indicates that, okay, this is a pipeline, right? And think about the procedure. What do we need in a pipeline? The first thing to do is defining which agent should this job assign to, right? And we can address it using the agent block. As you can see, there is an agent block here. And in this sample provided by Jenkins itself, it is Kubernetes, right? If we go with the agent with the type of Kubernetes, we can just simply create the YAML here, right? But if you can remember, we have already done it. Where inside the Kubernetes cluster itself, we defined our pod template, we defined our container, and everything is there, right? So I don't want to go with it. I will just delete the whole block here. And instead of that, what I should do is refer to the label we created for that pod template. And we do so using label. Let's say our label is KubeAgent. As you can see, we assigned the label, namely KubeAgent, to the pod template. So that's the way we refer to that pod created inside Kubernetes plugin, right? So the next thing we have is stages. Just think about the stages exactly as the stages that should happen inside the pipeline. Our pipeline can be consist of several stages, and in each stage you have several steps, and you can decide on which container do you want this specific step happens in, right? So that's the whole idea. For this part, we just want to duplicate the thing that we created with Freestyle project here, and that is, let's say I want to git clone, just like this, because the first step is to cloning the Git repository. And then inside the steps, I will say, instead of sh hostname, which is simply just print the hostname, what I want to do is using git and providing our Git repository address. Let's quickly go back to our Git repository. There you go, this is the Git repository. I just copy the address here. Let's go back to the VS Code. And yeah, this is the address for this part, right? Okay, so far we created a pipeline which consists of only one stage. This pipeline should be assigned to the agent with the label KubeAgent, which basically is our pods. And then there is only one step in the first stage, and that is just cloning some Git repository, our remote Git repository. Let's copy it and then go back to the Jenkins. Where is Jenkins? Jenkins is here. And then instead of this template, just paste this. Hit apply. I will keep it open because we're gonna continue developing and extending these codes. I just go back to Go App in new page and then hit the build button, and let's see what is going to happen here. So the pipeline is started by user Rafi. In this step, actually, it should bring up a new pod agent, okay? As you can see, this is the configuration in YAML for the pod template we just created inside Kubernetes plugin. right? So you have two approaches here. You can simply just define your YAML file, your pod YAML file here inside the script, or you can pre-configure it through a Kubernetes plugin and then just refer to it, right? So let's see what do we have here. As you can see, it already just parse every configuration into the YAML file and then just cloned the repository we defined, and this step is actually success. It's successfully finished, right? Then let's go back to the configuration. Let's go back to the VS Code. We want to extend it a little bit. So in next step, what we need to do is create or add a new container inside this pod to assign the task for building the image. And that simply means we're gonna have more than one container inside the pod, right? So how Jenkins know which container is responsible to execute which tasks, right? We did not define it directly here because basically that pod only consists of one container, and it's quite obvious that that container is responsible to do so. But soon enough, we're gonna have more than one container. So let's see how we can address it. For addressing this problem, what we should do is inside the step, let's say we have a container, and which container is it? Our container name is JNLP, and it has its own block, right? And then this step we just previously created should be placed in the block related to this JNLP container. That's the point. So what we have to do now is adding a new container inside that pod, which is responsible to create the build, which is responsible to create the image itself. The point here is that Kubernetes is no longer supports Docker, right? So we cannot simply use a Docker image DND for creating a Docker image inside the pod, inside the deployment. And that could be a challenge for us. But fortunately, there is a project created by Google and maintained by Google named Canico, which basically is responsible to create a Docker image inside the Kubernetes cluster without accessing to docker.sock file. Let's quickly go back to Jenkins configuration and add our required container, namely Canico there. So inside the Jenkins configuration, this is the tab for our Kubernetes configuration, and the pod, and then the container. Where is it? Yeah, the container here, and we have only one container. What we're gonna do is add another container using add container here, and then let's name it as Canico, and then a Docker image for Canico, which is this. And then everything else looks good, so we have the same working directory. Everything looks good so far. Let's just apply it and go back to the editor. Let's go back to the VS Code because we can just simply edit it in a better way there. So the next step is, let's say this is not gonna be a step, but this is going to be a stage. So this is the stage block. We are going to add another stage, and this stage name is let's say Canico build image, right? And it has its own block. And inside the block, what should we do is defining steps. It has its own block, and then which container is responsible to create an image, then the container, and the name of the container we just created is Canico, and this container has its own block as well, and inside it we should define what should happen there, right? But in the first try, I just want to simply say echo, let's say hello from Canico, just to be sure that all the configuration is correct, and we can just run this task inside the Canico container. Let's copy it and then just apply it, go back to the build and build now. Let's see if everything is going as expected. Okay, as you can see, we have hello from Canico here, and also just referring to the pod template. So as you can see, this is the image for Canico that it defines. So the container is already available here, and it looks good. We can just continue extending our code. Let's go back to the VS Code terminal. Okay, now think about what do we need here, right? So instead of echoing hello from Canico, what we should do is creating the Docker image, right? We can simply create the Docker image using this command. We don't need that part anymore. We are going to execute the command from the container shell, and what we need to do is, let's say, because it's gonna be a block here, and then just paste it like this, and this gonna be the destination. So the destination is my own Docker registry, which is for test purposes, and yeah, there it is. So looks good, everything looks good. Okay, before that, let me show you the output of ls-ilh command, right? So you can grasp a better idea of what is going on inside the agent directory. What do we have there, right? If you can remember, in the previous step, we just cloned the whole Git repository in different containers, right? But the path for this container, the working path for this container, Canico container, and the previous container is just like the same. And also these two are inside the same pod, right? So basically they have access to their files, right? That's the point. So let's first instruct Jenkins to show us what do we have inside the working directory, and then let's say we have a shell block, and this is the command that we should run here, and this is the command that we should run here, and the destination is yeah, this is my Docker registry created only for test purposes. And what this command simply does is execute the Canico and then provided the context as output of pwd command and the destination for Docker registry, right? And inside that context, you have to have a Docker file. So Canico will start parsing the Docker file and creating the layers and create the final image based on the Docker file. And then it needs some destination where Canico should push the created image to, right? And that is the part we defined in the destination argument, which is simply my test Docker registry address. And then let's copy it, go back to the Jenkins, and paste it here and see what happens now. Let's build it again. Checking out what's happening there. Okay, very nice. As you can see, this is the output of ls-ilh command, and you see that the cloned Git repository here in the previous step is also accessible from the Canico container, and that's the reason that basically Kaneko is able to create the Docker image. That was one point that I wanted to mention. And then we failed here. As you can see, the status is failure. And why is that? Let's check. Okay, there it is. Unauthorized, right? Absolutely makes sense. We are creating an image. We want to just push it to the Docker registry, and we didn't provide the credentials for that Docker registry. And that's the reason this step already failed. So to overcome this situation, as a remedy, what we're gonna do is first creating a Docker script inside the namespace that Kaneko pods or the Kaneko container running on, and then provide the credentials, the Docker registry credentials inside that secret into the Kaneko container. Let's see how we can achieve it. Let's go back to the configuration here. As you can see, there's configuration here, and for the Kaneko container, we can simply add environment variables, right? And we have the option for environment variable from secret. But first, we need to create the secret itself. And inside the VS Code, we can simply just create a secret with the command kubectl create secret. The secret type is Docker registry, and the name we defined for this secret is docker-secret, and the Docker username and Docker password and the Docker email is also provided, and it should be available only inside the Devops tool namespace. Let's create it quickly. Okay, something is not right. It's not right because it shouldn't take that much long. Let's see, do we have access to the cluster or not? We have. Then rerun this command. Okay, this time it's created. And then let's say secret-n tools. As you can see, the secret is available here. And then let's see what do you have inside the secret. Right, providing the name of the secret, and then get it as YAML file, right? Okay, this is basically the secret, right? This is the important part for us. The key for this secret, the key available inside this secret. Let's go back to the Jenkins again. Okay. And inside Jenkins, I will assign to the container Kaneko an environment variable from secret. I will name this environment variable as, let's say, Docker. No, not Docker. Let's say registry _cred. Sorry. Registry _cred, and the secret name. The secret name is Docker secret, which simply indicates that you should read the key I will provide from the docker-secret secret available inside the Devops tools. And what is the secret key? If you go back quickly here inside the code, you can see that this is the key that we want to just provide as an environment variable. Going back to the configuration, and then, oops, I'm sorry. Then this is the key we want, and everything looks good. Hit apply. Okay, the point is it's not finished yet. Why? Because basically Kaneko container is not looking for the registry credentials inside any environment variable. There is a file that should be contain credentials, right? What we're gonna do is just reflecting the value available inside this environment variable to that file using shell script. Let's see how we can achieve it. Going back to the VS Code again, and what we do is just by extending the steps available here. We don't need in this step anymore. So what we need is a simple shell command to just echo registry _cred environment variable, into the file that is actually responsible to host the container, the Docker, the container registry credentials, right? This file is located inside /canico /.docker and config.json, and we just simply echo this to that file. And then let's see if it is working right now. Going back to the Jenkins again, and just copy the code inside the editor, hit apply, going back to the job itself, and build it again. Hopefully this time it can actually create the Docker image and then push it to the registry. Let's see. And here is amazing. And here is the pushing image to the registry I provided. And yeah, that's the tag that actually used, and yeah, the status is success. So we managed to create the image and push it to Docker registry as the second stage inside our pipeline. But it's not finished yet. Why? Because this way we actually always update the latest tag for the created image. This is not something desired, right? Because we don't want to use it. We don't want to lose the previous Docker images, because in some situations we need to roll back from one image to previous one, right? So how we can handle it? Well, we have to somehow provide some unique ID as image tag, right? We have two options here. One option is a build number, which is basically the number of builds happen inside the pipeline. A better way is to provide a commit ID as image tag, and that is the approach that we're gonna follow. So let's go back to the code again. What we need to do is somehow pass a variable from this stage, right, to this stage, and that variable is commit ID. And the way that we're gonna do it is just simply define a variable as, let's say, commit, let's say ID with the value of empty, right? And then during this stage, we have to assign the commit ID to this variable. Okay, how we can achieve it? We will add another step inside the containers JNLP, and in that step we are going to create a script. A script has its own block, so inside the script what I gonna do is executing a shell script git log-n1 -pretty and see the latest commit ID, get the latest commit ID. Actually, the output of this command is the latest commit ID. And I have to assign another argument for this shell script using sh, which is return std out true. This simply instructs that, please show Jenkins that you should create output of this command as a value, right? And then we can just simply assign our defined, oh, it's a bad naming here, sorry, this is a commit ID, so it should be a commit ID. Our defined variable here as the output of this command. And that's pretty much of it for here. Now what we can do is using this variable inside another stage. Why? Because basically the scope of this variable is the whole pipeline, right? It's one level upper than pipeline, and that's the reason. So okay, then what should I do here is create a tag for it, and let's say it should be commit ID, right? And then let's copy it, going back to the Jenkins, and then go back to the configuration and then paste it again, apply, And going back to the pipeline itself, and let's say build. Let's see what is going on with this new code. Okay, this is the part that Kaneko is working on. Let's wait till the push command and see what will be the tag ID. Okay, that's not good. Okay, as you can see, the tag ID, the commit ID actually that we assigned already is not working. Let's check what's the reason. Going back to the VS Code. Okay, that's the problem. Basically, in Groovy language, if you want $name variable name like this $commit ID to be treated as a variable, we should put it inside double quotation. So what I do is changing this to this, and then as we can see, even the color is already changed here, which shows that okay, this is the variable. So let's copy it, going back to the Jenkins pipeline editor, and paste it again, apply it, and then rerun the job. Hopefully this time we can access the commit ID and tag the image, push to the Docker registry with that commit ID. Let's see. There you go, and we managed to tag the created image with the commit ID. That's perfect. Hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to ask, if you find this video useful, please hit the like button, please do subscribe and share the links with your friends or colleagues who you think that might be useful for them as well. Thank you for bearing with me, and ciao.